question here is like, today are we discussing like, because last week we discussed like first three chapters, and then we thought that we'll read like 4, 5, and 6 this week. But in the beginning of the conversation, you mentioned that it is going to be like 3 and 4 again, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But also, if there's anything you want to discuss from anywhere in the book, like bring it up. This is a meeting of the minds. This is just a group of people who have similar interests, and we're coming together to bounce these thoughts off of each other. So
Yes.
just go with the flow.
Okay.
So
yeah.
Sorry. So you asked me if I had anything, and I was actually reflecting on our question from the last meeting. You posed 2 questions at the end of the meeting. And the reflection question was, if this book isn't meant to be taken literally, then what does kingdom and riches mean in the mind and everything? But I'm crazy, and I went back and read 1 through 3 again. And my question to you guys was, the only time that kingdom and riches is mentioned is in that first chapter where Arjuna is first coming to Krishna with his issues. So, in that sense, wouldn't Arjuna actually be meaning kingdom and riches? Because at that point, Krishna hasn't even had the chance to speak yet. So Krishna hasn't introduced his ideas yet. I thought that Arjuna was saying, like, Krishna, I don't want to fight this war. I don't need these riches. I don't need the kingdom. I thought that was being meant literally. What does anybody else think? Am I wrong? Am I interpreting that wrong? Or what do you guys think?
Madhavi?
Okay, so as mentioned, like so the first chapter is mostly about so maybe like in the beginning of the chapter itself, they mention it as like Arjuna. I'll see, the name of the chapter is oh, okay, it is the war within. So when the war has started, so this Gita has started on the Kurukshetra war. On the day of the war, both the parties, they have decided. So before the war, they tried to reconcile, they tried to go and talk, and they tried to subside this war. They don't want to do a war because this is between two brothers, sons of two brothers, so they really don't want to do that one. So they tried to go talk. Krishna went and talked to Dhritarashtra and his sons and everybody. They never agreed to give the land or like the possession or anything to these 5 kids, the 5 kings, other 5 kings. So on the day of the war, this thing has started. Like, so before the war, everything they try to reconcile. They try to not to go to the like, they try to then everything happened, their conversations happened, but they did not actually agree with any of the things that Arjuna and his 5 brothers were saying. So that is when they started like, okay, we will do a war, we will go for a war. So then they come to the war. On the war field again, Arjuna's heart and mind is so flickering that again he started thinking emotionally that, okay, let's not do the war. If I do the war, my siblings will die, my gurus will die, my teachers will die, I'll have more sins, and he will go like emotionally depressed. So that is when so the first chapter is about Arjuna talking about his emotions, like, okay, these are my brothers, they might die, their wives will be at risk, and their kids will be at risk, and I'll be bearing all the sin and all the bad fate and everything. So that is like, then Krishna will be silent for most of the time, because he is listening to the Arjuna's complaints, and like what all he's talking, what kind of um, he wanted to know the emotional state of mind. Krishna wants to know the emotional state of mind of Arjuna. That is the reason why Arjuna was talking about the war and everything. So then he understood, Krishna understands that he is not emotionally stable, mentally and emotionally stable. That is when, like, he talks like a psychologist, like, okay, so you have to control your emotions, your these things, and you have to be like a yogi, and at the same time you have to do your duties as your responsibility and all that. So he tells all those things. And hope this explanation is useful. Uh, Caitlin, yeah, is this useful to you? Like, so did you understand this explanation?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that is how it is. So they mainly talk about so he understands where Arjuna is coming from, and then he goes from there, because he wants to know, because Arjuna is a very righteous king from the beginning, and they have like huge um uh, they have like, he has like good skills in the archery and everything, and he also learns, even when during the guru, like while he was studying, like when they went to the gurukul, in the guru system, under the teachers, he was the very great good candidate, good student. And even the good person also is feeling this kind of flickering and the wavering mind. This might be quite possible to the normal human beings, even in during the recent times also. That is where the comparison comes. Even though this happened like so many years ago, still we take those lessons, because that is like truly applicable to each one of us. So
Thank you, Madhavi. I appreciate that.
thank you.
For some reason, your hand is still up. You might have to lower it.
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay, there we go. So, Caitlin, I wanted to go back to what you said, which was, it sounds like the story meant, that part was meant literally. And I think there's a lot in the story that we can take literally. And I think this can be confusing to the reader. So my question is, what if it wasn't literal? What do you think the kingdom and the riches could mean to us individually in this life? Maybe just for us with our relationship with ourselves. Is it our relationship with others? I don't know if that's something that you guys want to reflect on, or if you have anything you want to share.
I think if I didn't take it literally, I don't know, that's a hard question, because then my mind kind of automatically went to, is he saying that he doesn't want his selfish desires? Because that would I think that would be what the kingdom and riches is referring to, is whatever selfish desires you have. But I don't know, what does anybody else think?
Hanny, it looks like you're talking, but your mute is on.
I turned it off. Okay, sorry. I just for a better reference point, can you, either Katie or Shauna, can you explain to me or read is there like a brief paragraph that talks about the kingdom and the riches?
Yeah, do you have that handy,
I
Caitlin?
don't have my book yet, and I've looked at Kindle, trying to get, like, do as much prep as I can before I launched into this, but I just haven't had time to really dig in like I want to. So I would love to be able to kind of give some feedback, but I just want a better reference point, if that's okay.
Yeah, let me find it. Okay, so if anybody else has their book and wants to find it, it's on page 80, verse 32. So Arjuna is talking about, this is a big long section, so I'm going to kind of paraphrase it and then read the actual phrase.
Okay.
So in this particular section, Arjuna is saying, like, I am so anxious. I don't want to fight my own family. This feels wrong. This bodes evil for all of us. And then he says, I have no desire for victory or for a kingdom or pleasures. Of what use is a kingdom or pleasure or even life if those whose sake we desire these things, teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, uncles, in-laws, grandsons, and others with family ties, are engaging in this battle, renouncing their wealth and their lives. So he's like, why would I want this if it comes at the cost of all of my family's life? Because he's fighting against his own family. So ultimately, all of his family is going to die and whatnot. But that's what we're talking about, is like, what is he referring to there when he says, I have no desire for victory or for a kingdom or pleasures?
Mhm. Okay. That's kind of like, I don't, without any context or anything, where my point of reference or kind of like my intuition was taking me, um, might have some alignment with this personally. So, in a kind of not so literal sense, um, I've been going through like this change internally, like this shift internally of doing a lot more internal work on disciplining myself, to become better and more aware and conscientious and present in my way that I present, the way that I communicate, the way that I give space and hold space for other people, just in everyday interactions and in specifics. Mostly, my biggest focus has been in my relationship with my husband. And as I've been going through this and like experiencing all the dynamics that come with a big change and a big internal shift, with such intention, what I've realized more and more that is a lesson that has played out many times in my life, but it just seems more potent and more like tangible now, is that what is it that I'm fighting for? If I want so desperately to be understood, to be heard, to be seen in real time, to connect, and feel connected to, authentically, um, if all of that is what I want, um, then there is a huge awareness that I have now in a very different and more potent way, that I have to be willing to basically let all those wants go and become part of the collective and become part of like, um this bigger desire to just like know others, know the human in front of me, strip myself of all the expectations and all the desires that I have and that I think are so, almost principled inside of me that I shouldn't let go of, but yet allowing space to just be in the presence with that person that I so desire for them to see me and connect with me. And instead of all that fixation, just put my riches aside and my seeking of that kingdom of bliss, of connection, and all things that resonate as authentic and beautiful. Just be authentic and beautiful in that moment. Be the riches for that person. And as I've realized that and internalized that more and more, it's like, therefore, there's much more like a bigger likelihood and chance that there will be a togetherness and a union and a connection that is felt and reciprocated on both sides. then the power of that connection and that oneness and that more whole kind of complete feeling of partnership is what is going to more likely advance us forward in life and together in companionship, getting us to that place of quote unquote kingdom or you know, betterment and just more. But it's like it's by letting go of that predetermined and absolute decided, like, you know, desire inside, and instead of like checking off the ABCs and the, you know, chronological 1 2 3s, whatever, instead of like making sure all of that is taken care of, you go external and meet that person or the people where they are and find ways inside of you to align.
I
Is that
love
is
that.
that at all connecting? Does that make sense to
I
whatever?
love that. I want to, first of all, thank you for bringing that perspective. It sounds to me like what you're saying, and it sounds so cool. And I wrote it down while you were talking, was be the riches in service, meaning our service to others
Yeah.
is the riches.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really cool and moving. And then you talked about letting go, and that leads perfectly into the other question that we ended with, which is, where are we practicing detachment in our lives? Because this book is talking so much about detachment. Has anybody been thinking about where you're practicing detachment in your life and what that looks like for you personally? Monica's just joining us. Let me just let her know. Hey, Monica, we were just talking about one of the questions we left off with last week, which is where we are detaching in our real lives and what that looks like for us. And so, Madhavi, go ahead.
I don't know, like, if I am an expert in that, or like I have become like that or something. I just want to say, like, wherever some relations, like our parents, or like with marriage, we get some relations, right? So especially with relations, I am actually practicing some sort of detachments, like trying to understand their point of view, and also try to understand us. So in order to practice the detachment, we have to know ourselves first. Then it is very helpful to detach from the other person, and also you know the other person, and also you should know yourself first, and you know the other person, and understand it, and keep like let go of like people, like, okay, you understand the situation, you understand yourself, and it that whatever, like, letting go shouldn't actually take a toll on our brain, or like our body, or like our emotional well-being. So without being without so it is very tough to it is very difficult to explain. It is like, you whatever is happening, it shouldn't affect your mind, and at the same time you have to practice it. you have to you have to be in the relationship but staying detached, and let go of the person, and know the situations, and take the situations, like instance by instance. It's not like you shouldn't mix one situation with the other situation. Don't tangle like each situation. And you have to like clear off them, clear the understand, clear it off, and let go of the situations. This is what, like, I have been trying to do somewhere in the relationships. Like, I have like I try to do, and like practicing the detachment, but I am not completely sure, like, if I have an expertise in that or not. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I don't think anybody in this group is an expert at detachment. I don't think we would be in this group if we were.
I don't think we would have already arrived. We'd be done living.
Yeah, exactly. We would just disappear into the world. Did you guys ever read what was that famous book that talks about that? It's at the tip of my tongue. Well, whatever. When it comes to me, I'll bring it up later. It's like a really famous book that's like once you reach the full state of enlightenment, you just sort of like disappear.
Just your work is done.
It's something prophecy, theory. I can't remember what. Anyways, so does anybody else want to talk about an example of detachment in their life? If
I just
not,
thought I just thought it was a really cool mention that she made about cleaning the slate or clearing the space one moment to the next so that you don't come in with predetermined kind of like feelings and already have like emotions at a set point or opinions or biases, like to really detach yourself from like any sort of expectation or like opinion or feeling or whatever, and finding yourself in this like moment of clarity and just like freedom to absorb and immerse yourself in that moment without any kind of like knowing beforehand, I guess, or desire,
like a predisposition.
Yeah, and I think like, wow, there's so much power in that, and I don't believe we really take the time to think on that way as much as perhaps would benefit us. But it struck me when she said that.
That's fair. Thank you for sharing that. That's a really good point. Monica.
Hey, so one quick thing that strikes me when I talk about, I mean, not me talking about detachment, but when you guys first started discussing about detachment, to me personally, I really want to detach from sleep. I love sleep, and I really want to cut down on that aspect, because if I can restrict my sleeping time, then probably I feel I can do a lot more things. Like that's my main thing. I wish I could win over that. I'm really, striving to do that. It has become a very big thing. I'm like fighting with it. That's the tough task for me.
I'm really wanting to jump into coaching right now. So I want to get some clarity on detaching from sleep, because I'm thinking detaching is an emotional detachment. And when you talk about sleep, I think, wait a second, sleep is part of our like physical needs.
Right.
So how much sleep are you getting, and why are you trying to detach from sleep? Because that, to me, sleep seems like something that's necessary for us to be functional. So can you dive into that a little bit?
Sure. So basically, I'm like a kind of multitasker in general, and I have many things on my plate which I want to do. But end of the day, I'm like, oh my gosh, I couldn't do it. And when I go back and see where I wasn't successful, I feel it's because, oh my gosh, that 1 hour of my sleep, if I could have cut down on it, I could have maybe did it. Like for example, like I'll just give you a small example. Today I wanted to wake up at around 6 o'clock, and so that I could read more chapters from the book. I'm already done till chapter 6, but I was like, maybe let me complete more for the next coming week. And for whatever reason, my son was a little sick, and all the small things still coming up. But I don't want, I want to train my body in such a way that I don't want to give such kind of excuses. And I really want to use that 1 hour of my time very nicely, like, for myself, like reading or, doing some kind of exercise. Which, end of the day, I feel very bad for myself. Like, oh my gosh, I could have done some exercise, or, I could have got some me time in that time, or read a book. That drains my little bit of energy. That's where I feel, oh my God, I can't even, I wish I could have done that. That's something, I
Thank
feel
you.
very bad. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That gives me a lot more clarity. Katie, I'll be right with you. Okay. I just want to respond to Monica and say, what's interesting is as I'm hearing you, my brain is going, well, it sounds to me like you're not trying to detach from sleep as much as you're trying to detach from the limiting beliefs that you have
Right. Maybe I didn't put it in right. Right. Mm-hmm.
around sleep. And, you know, that's, man, that sounds like I want to dive into that, but I don't think it's appropriate for this session. But yeah, like maybe at some point we can have a chat and we can talk about that, because I can definitely see some ways to maybe change that up for you.
Awesome.
Jay Shetty talks about, I'll just say this and then I'll go on to Katie, but in one of the early modules, he talks about how we've been trained to multitask. And that's the first thing that popped up when you were saying I'm a multitasker. I'm like, yeah, because we've been trained that is what is, okay, Colleen's gonna go grab her baby. Cute. We've been trained to do as much as we can all the time. And it didn't dawn on me that wasn't a great thing until Jay talked about it in the modules. And so I would recommend friend to friend to check out that module that has to do with single tasking.
Okay. Do you by any chance know like which module it is, or can I quickly?
You know, I don't. I want to say it was like in the very beginning, but I will do some research. Does anybody know?
Because it's been 3 weeks and I started doing the modules, but I didn't see it yet. Maybe I'm not done. I'm not there yet. Maybe. So
Okay, thank you for that. I will look into that and I will find it for you. Okay, thanks, Katie.
Okay.
Also, Katie, you were waiting so patiently and now your hand's not up. Did you want to share?
It's okay. I was gonna say
thanks,
something
Katie.
about, yeah, you're welcome. I was gonna say something about detachment, but I now realize that we only have 30 minutes, so it's all right.
I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
Oh, fine. So, I would say that where I'm trying to practice detachment is other people's opinions of me. So, and that when I say that, it comes up with like you know, past relationships of like, oh God, you know, why wasn't I good enough, blah blah blah. And then it also can kind of transfer into even strangers, you know, like sometimes you reach out to people and you know you don't get the response you're wanting and you're like, what's up with that? And so I am trying to detach myself from those types of emotions and just realizing like not everything means that it's something to do with me. It could be to do with them, but that's where I'm trying to practice detachment right now.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's very pertinent. And my question to all of us is, I'll be right with you, Madhavi. My question to all of us is, what does that look like when we're practicing? What does that conversation in our head look like? So yeah. Did you want to jump in?
Yeah. So what I've just been trying to do, so I'll give you the example, is that like I've been reaching out to people for coaching, you know, like I'll comment, I'll message them, and then they'll read it and never respond. And, you know, you kind of have that moment of like, oh, you know, like kind of that like down and like, why didn't they respond? But I've just been trying to change my mindset to it wasn't meant to be. Like if they didn't respond, then it wasn't meant to be. And I've found new clients that I'm doing great with. So it's just changing the mindset really for me.
Exactly. I love that. It's exactly what I was thinking myself. Madhavi, go ahead. Thanks for your patience.
I think I just wanted to let Monica know that it is module 3 where Jay spoke about sleeping, like how do you sleep like early, and he mainly talks about the wheel of life and so and also like success principle, and that's when like he spoke about sleeping, yeah, how to live, and how to spend and all that, like do some preparation in the night, have a prepare the food and your lunch box, fix your box, and then so that you'll not go out and eat. So something like that he was talking about. So I just wrote some notes and I just want to share it here.
Thank you for that.
Thanks, Madhvi. Module 3, right? Yeah, I wrote it down.
Module 3.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
So I wanted to talk about a few things from the chapters that we just read. I'm going to bring up, let's see, hopefully I'm in the right chapter because I feel like I might be, I think I am. Okay, so chapter 5. See, now that's too far ahead, right?
Well, that's my question. Like, technically, we didn't really I don't think we discussed chapter 3 much last time. Not
okay, well,
that I remember.
Okay.
But
Okay,
that's my
so
question for you is like, do you want to review 3 and 4 this time and then do 5 and 6? Because that's up to you. I don't care. I don't know if anybody else has a thought.
Monica, you're shaking your head no. What's your thought?
No, I haven't. Yeah, that's fine. I'm sorry. I'm shaking it the wrong way.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I'm just like such a go with the flow kind of girl, honestly. It's interesting for me to have all these people that want to be structured. It's so showing up for me perfectly for me. I am going to go with my flow, and if anybody wants to go with their flow, they can bring up whatever chapter they want and we'll just discuss it. So my flow is page 124. This one in particular is just really stuck with me. Let me read it. I want to read it. Oh crap, I'm wrong. It's chapter 5. Okay. This just really struck me and I wanted to talk about it with the group. Krishna says that only immature, inexperienced people look upon the paths of knowledge and action as different. The true goal of action is knowledge of the self. Following either path faithfully will lead to the complete spiritual vision. I felt really moved by that, because if we are talking about Arjuna being in that crossroads of like, I don't know what to do. And last week we talked about, it seems like Krishna is like trying to persuade him to take action. And he's like, got the brakes on. I don't want to take action. This action feels wrong to me. And Krishna's like, but you got to take action. And as I'm reading that, I'm thinking to myself of every mistake I've ever made in my life and how much I've grown because of those mistakes, how much deeper I know myself, how much more conviction I have in who I am and who I choose to be each day versus who I was in the past. I don't think I could have gotten to that place without taking action and learning from it. So that just felt really profound to me, that our actions are working toward our goal of knowing ourselves. So very interesting. Does anybody else have any feedback on that? Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, so I loved that quote too. I highlighted it actually too. So the way that it hit me was, exactly the same as you, because I kind of thought of it as like, especially, I don't know, I guess everywhere, but especially in the US, like you're kind of expected to know what you want to do by the time you're out of high school and like all of this and like have your life decided. And when I read that passage, I was like, yeah, exactly. You have to go try the things to learn if it's your path. And if it's not your path, then you move and you try something different. And that's the only way you know is taking action. And just like you said, even if mistakes and hardships come, you still learn from it. So, yeah, I
Okay,
love that.
so I love that. Thank you for that. As you were saying that, my mind just went, wait a second. We're sacrificing. Something is lost when we fail and when we make these mistakes. Something is lost. And that's the sacrifice that we make in order to gain the knowledge. So I'm wondering if Krishna is trying to push Arjuna to make these sacrifices. He's going to have to let go of some things that he loves, some things that feel familiar, if he wants the riches that are going to follow. Oh, mic drop. Okay, whose hand was up first? Monica, go ahead.
So that's a very nice thing that you pointed out, Shauna, because I don't know how I missed it, but it really struck me now. But when you were reading it out, the way I see it is, Krishna says that only immature, inexperienced people look upon the paths of knowledge and action as different. I can completely resonate it with myself because I'm into IT. Okay, I'm into coding, which I'm not happy, but I got a job. Okay, I'm getting money, and that's fine. All these days, that was my thought. But in COVID and after COVID, when I started thinking about myself and when the chord struck that, okay, think I'm not good at coaching, or I started thinking, why do people come to discuss their personal issues, or why do they think I'm good at it, or am I good at it? I started thinking on those lines. When I started thinking about those lines, and when I read this line, it says the true goal of action is knowledge of the self, which makes it clear to me. And following either path faithfully will lead to the complete spiritual vision. Wow, I feel, oh, wow. That's really nice. I mean, that's how I can resonate it, those lines with me. Yeah, that's what I wanted to share.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you. It is awesome. Madhavi, go ahead.
Shauna, actually, even I have highlighted the same lines, and somewhere like I feel the same as you and Katie, who just who just spoke about those lines. So, so so mainly we have all the knowledge in general, like while growing up, or how I resonate is like we have all the knowledge, we have all the good upbringing from the parents or from the teachers or anything. So putting that knowledge into action makes us different. So I wanted to read Gita from like so many years, but I don't know. I know that Gita is a powerful book, which I have to read it because it is our holy book. I never read it for like, I can say like 32 years I never read it. So in the 32nd year of mine, I put that into action and I read it, and that is actually giving me the internal peace. And also like when I'm going through like chapter by chapter and learning each verses, like the verses, actual verses spoken by Krishna and Arjuna, and learning the meaning of it, then relating it to my life, I am able to understand like, okay, where I am missing, what I am not doing, and all that. So that is where like I can resonate from. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Does so Monica, your hand is still up. I think for whatever reason we have to lower it. I know sometimes once we talk it lowers, but on this, maybe because I'm on my phone, I don't know. Okay, so the next thing I want to point out that really struck me was the next page, page 125. It says,
what verse are you on?
This doesn't really say a verse, but it's page 125 and it's basically the last paragraph.
Okay.
Sort of like, I'll show you. Can you see down here?
Okay.
Okay, because it almost starts another paragraph here, which might mean that this is the last paragraph. So then it's the last two, but.
Okay.
Okay, so this knowledge of the self, or Atman, which I'm pretty sure the Atman is soul, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the knowledge of the self, or Atman, is by its very nature also knowledge of Brahman, and Brahman is God, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's basically saying the knowledge of the self, or the soul, by its very nature is also knowledge of God. And I thought to myself, like, I was really trying to decide if I wanted to bring this up in the meeting today or not. I wasn't sure how it would be received, but everybody talks about how difficult this book is. And maybe if I was reading one that wasn't done by this guy who did it so nice, made it so nice and easy, maybe it would be harder. But for me, I feel like what they're trying to tell us to do is like really clear, and every chapter is the same exact message, but we're just kind of going over it again and again. And it's basically comes down to something I think I said in the last video, which was like, give up your attachment to pain and pleasure, and you'll basically become one with God. And there it is. There's the answer to life. Like, it might be, I mean, is anybody else feeling this way about it? Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, I think so. You're right, because the whole thing that he's trying to teach Arjuna is that all of us have God within us, but it's our job as we live to find it and seek it and understand it. So yeah, you're right. Like, I agree that it's like every chapter is just repeating the same message, but we're diving like a little deeper each time. So yeah, I definitely agree.
Thank you for that, Madhavi.
Yes, I really agree with your sentence, Shana, but that is the knowledge we have it. Like we know about it, like we should know about our soul, and we shouldn't get attached to our body, because the soul will have another body, it will take another birth and everything. We have the knowledge, but still, if this body gets anything, or like any of our materials get any sort of issues or anything, we still get attached, and we'll go like depressed, and we feel bad about like our our relations, our relationships. So that's what like the sixth chapter talks about. To practice the detachment is not very easy in our day-to-day life. We think about it, but we don't put that into action generally. So the sixth chapter is mainly about that. I really loved that chapter while reading it. It is about the meditation. The through meditation, like practicing the meditation in our day-to-day lives, and always thinking about like this body and soul are the two different things. And that is how like you will reach the God, and your soul will not have another birth. When you have that sort of knowledge and wisdom, you will not get so you will not have another birth. That is what the chapter 6 talks about. And it's mainly like how you do the meditation and everything. He mainly describes like even person like Arjuna asks Krishna once, like, if I fail to be an yogi, or if I fail to do the meditation, what will I do? Will I go back to the sins and everything? So then Krishna also explains like, no, you will not go. So once you start the meditation practice, it will take you to, you will be having the rebirths until you attain that knowledge. That's what Krishna mentions. So I really understood that part. Even I was not sure about it before, but this is something like throwing some light on the path of the meditation where you attain that knowledge. So but the practicing is like very difficult in our day-to-day life, in this earthly nature, in this um, materialistic world. It's very difficult for every one of us, each one of us.
Yeah, in the physical world. I know it's interesting that you bring up meditation. Hani, I'll be right with you, because so many people struggle with being able to meditate, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting how we also struggle detaching from our
Yeah.
experiences. So
Yes.
once we can get disciplined enough to meditate for, extended periods of time, then it makes sense that it would be easier for us to detach from this physical experience and attaching to all of our emotions and what everybody else is feeling and thinking. So thank you for bringing that up. Hani, go ahead. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, no problem. I just was things coming to my mind and kind of referencing things I've heard in the past. But after you first read that part in the book and shared whatever you shared, I mean, I know what you shared, but just what came to me was something that my dad used to always say. I mean, he still says it, but growing up, I used to hear him say this all the time. And it's just a simple phrase. He'd say, life is beautifully simple and simply beautiful. It's the human that complicates it all. And obviously that's so much easier said than done, but yet it's so perfectly stated. I think that, like, what I think we're here to become and here to learn, and the ways in which our life has a high level potency of greatness, each one of us, are more great and grandiose and amazing and powerful than I think the human inside of us allows for us to believe or to know. But once we do dial into that and connect to that, even in a small way, um, there's so much power in taking it back to simple, just keeping things simple, keeping things uncluttered in our path and in our life and in our thoughts and in our everyday interactions, and just freely in that simplicity, in that simplicity, being able to be so much more free to authentically engage and receive like whatever is in that moment for us that is best going to serve us and others if there are others involved. And then the another thing that came to my mind was I've always been a huge fan for most of my life of like just saying, because I love to learn and I'm a very curious person, and I'm asking questions a lot. And so I back that up where I kind of follow any kind of like interaction where I'm requesting information or looking for information or wanting to better serve um, the situation by understanding more. And I'll say like, well, I'm so grateful because knowledge is power. I feel more empowered with this knowledge. And not to say that that isn't true to me anymore, but in one of the modules, Jay mentioned that very phrase and said, and actually, if you really think about that and you break it down, it's not knowledge that is power. It is power in the doing. So doing is power. And for whatever reason, that really surfaced inside of me right now, because um, we have a choice every day and every moment what we are going to do and how we are going to respond and how we are going to, you know, become or whatever in each moment. And as hard as that discipline is to like stay detached and to stay like only connected to the simplicity, um, life throws in front of us continually the things that we still need to learn. And so the repetition of that being in front of us again and again and again, realizing that the way to truth, the way to higher living, to the most optimal levels of empowerment and enlightenment are zero to do with anything material or anything connected to the ego in a negative way. And so all the things that get into our way and clutter our way and completely obstruct our path that we might hold on so tightly to because, you know, for whatever reason, there's an attachment, are usually the things that are most damaging or detrimental to that clarity on our path. So whether that any of that makes sense, but I just like finding ways to activate our greatness and not deny our greatness from ourselves, I think comes from keeping it simple.
I love everything you just said. I took a bunch of notes because you were inspiring my brain to go like so I have an appointment today, so I have to cut this off at 1 so I can make my appointment. But I'm gonna kind of try to start wrapping it up right now, but I do want to spin off of what you just said, Hani. First of all, perfectly simple, simply perfect, and us humans are messing it all up. Like I love that, and it made me think about how simple the instructions are. Like that's why I keep saying, like, it just seems like it's saying the same thing over and over. It's very simple, but like you said, yeah, saying it is simple. The recipe looks simple, but doing it is not simple. And it made me think about when you were saying, you know, all the things we're attaching to. I'm thinking to myself, why are we so desperately attaching to everything? Because even if we're bored in our own personal life, we find other people's shit to attach to, don't we? Look at us. We're so bored. Our life is so simple and mellow. We must find other people's shit to take, right? Simply complicated. Yeah. I saw that, Monica. Yeah, and so I'm reflecting on that, thinking, why are we so desperate to attach? And the only thing I can come up with is you're born, so you come from God. You know, maybe we're not in a physical form. I don't know. But then we come down here into a physical form, and suddenly we feel lost and we feel detached. And I'm wondering if it's because we're in a new form. We're not used to this form. We're not used to this physical world. So then we're here and we don't know anything about this world other than it's full of opportunities for experience. And every experience guides us and shapes us and molds us and grows us. And so in one hand, it's actually really great that we are attaching to things, because it is through those attachments that we are growing and we are learning what not to attach to. Like we're experiencing all this stuff like, oh yeah, no, I don't want to attach to that. I'm going to find something else to attach to, until we've learned all these things not to attach to, until we get to a book club where we're reading the Gita and we're going like, oh, okay, the only thing I actually want to attach to is God. And then it's like, oh, and God is in me. So how do I do that? Hani, I appreciate you bringing up when you mentioned anything attached to the ego, but then you use the word negatively attached. And I thought that was really wise, because in this detachment process, I'm learning to detach from my judgment of the darkness that is within me. I'm learning to detach from that judgment and to be okay with all of it. And the ego is a part of that. That's like a whole big conversation we could have, right? About ego's bad. But then I've had people say, well, maybe the ego isn't bad. Maybe the ego serves us, and maybe we shouldn't be judging it so harshly. So I appreciate you.
It's a healthy balance.
Noting that, like, the negative side of ego, because it's not all negative and it is all working together to grow us. So my question, let me just look at my notes, make sure. Yeah, I guess my question is for each one of us is, why do you think you're attaching to the things that you're attaching to? Like, that's the question that I think we should put thought into over this next week, and then start our session with that next week. because each one of us, I'm sure, has our own idea of why we're attaching to everything we're attaching to. So what does that look like for each one of us, right? Is there anything that anybody wants to say before we go?
So we are only talking about next week. We'll be discussing about chapter 5 and 6. Or like, are we moving forward? Oh.
That's the thing. I know I feel torn because these chapters have been so easy for me to read. I mean, I sit down and like 20 minutes, I'm done. I'm like, that was awesome. Okay, I'll wait till next week so I can stay with everybody. I don't want anybody to feel bad just because I happen to be having an easy time with this. I really want to honor and respect everybody's timeline. So I'm just feel like, yeah, let's come back. We already read, 5 and 6. So I feel like if we were staying on course, we would be going to 7 or 8. But I mean, what do you girls think? I'm a little lost right now on not trying to be overbearing with people and thinking people need to be at my speed, my time limit.
What about just capturing whatever truth or gem or little nugget that speaks to us and making note and highlighting it, and regardless of where it is in the book, if it's pertinent and if it decides that it wants to be discussed, then we can.
Sounds like my language.
I mean, regardless where we are in the book, there's so many obvious nuggets and beautiful portrayals that each one of us can tap into differently. And I think that you could stick yourself into one chapter probably for several discussions, right? So
I love that. I think that's where I'm at too. It's like, let's just, read a couple more chapters if that's wherever you are in the book, and we come together and we just talk about the nuggets that struck us. Thank you all. I just love you so much. Thank you for being on this journey with me, and I'm growing from each and every one of you. So really looking forward to our next meeting.
Thank you, Shona. Thank you, everybody.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Colleen. Sending you love and light too.
Bye.
Bye, ladies.